So you're going to be following along with me in my personal study today. I've been going through the book of Isaiah, and I'm doing it. I feel like I just have to kind of wrestle against this book a little bit. It's ginormous, and it's really difficult to get through. So I figured I was done being afraid of it, and I just needed to bite the bullet and start walking my way through it. It's gone slow, but I've really enjoyed it so far, even though I'm not too far along in it. But I want to ask a question that might not seem related to the book of Isaiah, but I promise you it is. When you hear the word Galilee, what comes to your mind first? Maybe you think of the Sea of, right? Sea of Galilee. We know Galilee is a region in the north part of Israel, and it contains the Sea of Galilee. So it's like a seaside region. Maybe you think of certain biblical stories. Jesus did a lot of miracles here. His ministry was kind of centered in this region. He did healings. Even the feeding of the 5,000 was in the region of Galilee. Or Cana, where he turned the water to wine, was in this region. We don't think about that maybe, but we know Jesus worked in this area, so maybe that comes to mind. When I was in Israel, we got to visit Galilee. It was beautiful. I mean, I remember getting up in the morning and looking out and thinking, this is like about the time Jesus would have been walking on the water. And you can see what that would have looked like. And it was amazing. I mean, it's a beautiful area, and it just set the scene for the biblical narrative really well. But all of these things are pleasant things. I think generally when we think of Galilee, we think of good things. The ministry of Jesus, seaside. That sounds really nice. But this was not the reputation of Galilee in the Bible for pretty much all of it. And I first discovered this as I was reading through the book of Isaiah. Now, a few words about this book. It's really interesting. There's many prophecies regarding judgment of Israel and Judah contained in this huge volume of prophecy and narrative. But a lot of hope is mixed in as well. Isaiah does a really good job of balancing the doom and the judgment that's coming for their sins, but also God's not going to leave them abandoned. He's going to care for them. He's going to bring them back and restore them. So it's like this weird dichotomy of this is going to go horribly wrong for you, but Messiah is coming. There's salvation on the other side of judgment. And Isaiah delivers this in a really strange way in many prophecies. He speaks in a way that makes it seem like the judgment is coming, but the salvation is already here or has happened already. It's like he switches his tense, his language, from present tense or future tense to past tense. He'll say, judgment will come, but hope has come. And if you're Israel or Judah, you're thinking, where's the hope? Like all these nations are at our borders, ready to overthrow us. But the way Isaiah talks, it's like hope is so assured that it's almost like he already sees it. He's lived it. It's definitely going to happen. And this is where we start today in chapter 8 and 9 of Isaiah. This is where I've left off my personal study. At the end of chapter 8, we get that doom, that judgment that's coming. And Isaiah says the northern tribes will be driven into darkness by Assyria. It will be bad. That's coming soon. But then at the very beginning of chapter 9, he says, in the latter time, he has made this northern portion of Israel glorious. He has increased their joy, as if it's already happened, even though Israel can't see that at this time. And this talks about this northern portion that we know from the New Testament as Galilee. I actually didn't even realize in the Old Testament, they still knew this region as Galilee, even though it was divided up by the tribes. And so sometimes it'll be described as the northern part of Israel, or Naphtali and Zebulun, because that's the tribes that kind of gained control of that territory. But they also knew it as Galilee. And in chapter 9 of Isaiah, you realize this because he refers to it as Galilee. But he says it in a very weird way. He doesn't just say the region of Galilee, that's kind of what I'm talking about, that's the prophecy, that it's going to be regarding that region. He gives it a very specific and almost antagonistic title, Galilee of the Gentiles, or Galilee of the nations. In Hebrew, it's Galil HaGoyim, and Goyim is like, you do not want to be called a Goyim. If someone calls you a Goy or a Goyim, that's fighting words, right? That's like, those disgusting people out in the nations. But that's what Isaiah says about Galilee. Now, There's a reason for this, because in this region, they are at the northern part of Israel, right on the border of some of their enemies. And so this, for a long time, even in Isaiah's time and all the way up to Jesus' time, this area is majority Gentile. They hadn't driven out their enemies as far as they needed to actually establish this land. And so the people that live there have to kind of coincide with Gentiles, always undergoing attack. When I was in Israel, we got to see some parts of the nation where during the Jewish wars, there were cities that were spared heavy devastation because the Jews and Gentiles lived side by side. Essentially, there were some Jews that thought, well, I don't really want to go against Rome. Like, can we not? Can we just have a nice city and like they live here too? And those places got spared. Anytime armies would come in, it's like, oh, leave that place. We're good with them there. But the Jewish people hated them because they thought, man, these guys are weak. They're not driving out the enemies like we're supposed to. They saw this as a systematic problem that had gone on all the way since the beginning of Israel when they entered into the promised land. And so the Jews view other Jews who live amongst Gentiles as unclean, as weak, as not doing their duty before God. This is kind of the narrative that surrounds Galilee. Now, I have heard evidence in the New Testament that Galilee might not be everybody's favorite place. Peter's accent betrays him as Galilean. Like they know, oh yeah, that guy's, we hear it in his voice. Just like we'd hear someone maybe from the South and be like, well, we know that guy's from the South, right? We know the accent. At Pentecost, everyone's very surprised to hear these people speaking in different languages and they're Galilean. Like, surely not those guys. They're not learned enough to know languages, right? And so I did understand that there was some negative views of this region, but I didn't realize it was so negative. I thought it was like hillbilly, not evil, right? But no, this region in the biblical narrative, from Isaiah all the way through to Jesus, was thought of as a lawless place, an evil place, a place of great darkness. This place had always been more Gentile than Israelite. It was finally overthrown by Assyria, and then it never really got back on its feet. It was just kind of always intermixed. So it was not respected. Its proximity to evil discounted the people from there entirely. Yet, in Isaiah 9 verse 2, if you want to read with me there, let's read what he says about this region that's filled with darkness. Isaiah 9 verse 2 says, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwell in a land of deep darkness, on them has light shone." Now, Isaiah, again, is not alive to see this happen. So he's speaking in the present tense about something that's coming, and he knows it's coming so assuredly that he can speak of it as if it's happened already. But he did not get to see this. And this light did come in the form of Jesus and his ministry to the region of Galilee. But I really love a few things about this section. Jesus was not ashamed of being considered a Galilean. We never hear of him bristling at that comment, right? Not one time. He had no problem with being a light in that incredibly dark place because that was where light was needed. He saw his purpose as being fulfilled in this area that was considered to be steeped in darkness. Now, the rest of Israel was also in darkness, but they didn't realize it. And so when he came, they rejected him, thinking, we don't need that light, we see well enough. It was actually the area of the greatest darkness that was most ready to receive the light. And I love that. In the dark, Jesus was all the brighter. I also love that Isaiah saw this northern region of Galilee of the Gentiles as personally anyways, he saw this as kind of a reprehensible place, not somewhere he wanted to go. It was Galilee of the nations. But from a prophetic perspective, he saw them as a people who would inevitably see a great light. It was as good as done. And he preached that hope. Do we think like this? Are we who live in society at this day and age, at this time in history, behaving like Jesus, unashamed of being here in the world, happy at the opportunity to glorify his name even more because of how dark it is? Have we gladly made ourselves like Galileans, knowing this is the area that needs light more than ever? Or are we living like Isaiah, where we see the darkness of the world and the inevitable issues that come with that, but ultimately We remain looking ahead to the prophetic future where these people that we live amongst are also going to see a great light. Have we rejoiced for the daylight that's coming for them? Or are we like the rest of Israel, simply counting ourselves lucky because it's not so dark for us? Originally, Israel was divided into different regions for different tribes. Naphtali and Zebulun got the northern regions that we're talking about here today. These were the ones closest to the enemy, the areas closest to danger, the ones most overshadowed by darkness. That was their lot. You could imagine, they're doling out the places and they think, oh, man, really? Can I get a place we've already secured? That was their lot. And that kind of seems to be our lot too. We dwell in a land that we know is full of darkness, and it's no shame to say that. We know that it is. We can choose to grumble about it, or we can choose to do like Isaiah did and proclaim the coming light, or as Jesus did and show them that light ourselves.